Welcome to Mindful Talk, brief conversations about mindfulness in the workplace and at home. I am your host, Lauren Wessinger.
And I'm your host, Misti Anderson. And this podcast is brought to you by the Mindful Project.
The Mindful Project helps you elevate the culture of your business by bringing mindfulness practice to you and your staff through in-person and virtual learning. Contact us through our website, themindfulproject.co, for more information. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, Misti and I are talking about the virtue of patience. And Misti came up with this topic. She is the queen of the best ideas for podcasts, I have to say.
Makes me feel so good.
You are.
What a great compliment.
You
I have
are.
lots of issues in my life to pull from.
Yeah, lots to work through, lots to talk about.
Yes.
No, you do. You have the best ideas always. Patience is actually in all contemplative traditions, whether it's yoga, mindfulness practice, some other style of meditation. Patience is like queen, patience is queen or king. And in this society, I think it's one of the reasons mindfulness practice is so important in this day and age of instant answers through iPhones, instant fixes through pills. Patience through these practices that ask us to slow down and not get everything we need instantly is a real inner skill that I think is required for any kind of contentment, any kind of happiness. Practicing patience changes our neurobiology. It changes our hormones even. There's just no silver bullet in these practices. I think that's why a lot of people quit meditation or yoga. It's like, it's not working. I've tried it for a month. It's not working. We're talking like lifetime commitment for these to have any kind of real change. So I have a lot to say about patience. So really, really great idea for a topic today.
When we first started the podcast, I kind of got that heart racing, very anxious feeling and sweaty. And I think it's because this is something that, patience is honestly probably the guiding reason for my mindfulness practice. Patience in life and things it throws you, patience in motherhood, patience with my spouse, patience with my family, patience with my extended family. All of those things require me to kind of slow down and often see things from other people's perspective or ask myself, is this worth it in that situation? And I'm not always good at it. And so as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, oh gosh, this is I have to really work at this. And I grew up a very ADHD impatient child, and I was constantly being told to slow down. And I see the same things in my daughter. And what's great is I have the ability now to give her a more mindful approach, and which I didn't have access to. And so I'm excited to, when I get spun out, that's kind of what tethers me back, is be the model, because you have to show them that mommy has to work on patience. And I tell them that. I'm like, look, I lost my patience. I'm very sorry. I'm human and I'm really working on it. And I think I am. And I think that, especially as parents, that's probably why a lot of parents lean into mindfulness is, that's the magic bullet. Like you said, someone's going to give me patience. And here I am. I've been practicing now for 5 years, and it is a daily practice.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a daily practice. And I think what's so important with these practices is to remember that we're never going to do it perfectly. We're always going to get it wrong. To not take it so seriously where we get mad at ourselves if we do the wrong thing, but to know that it's like little progressions each year, little wins each moment. losing your patience can be so many things, right? It could be getting angry at somebody and losing your temper, but it could also be, this is something I've had to learn over the years, like when it's my duty, when I'm needed to jump in and fix something, or when there's a situation that actually just needs to play out. And I think depending on where you are on the spectrum, some people have a need for more control than others. And if you have a need for more control, you quite possibly are one who wants to jump in, get things done, fix it so it doesn't move forward any longer, that uncomfortable situation. Where the skilled response and the wisdom of our practice comes in when we can know, hey, this is really uncomfortable right now, but it actually just needs some air to breathe. It doesn't need me to fix it and end it, whatever it is. It doesn't need me to get in there and like, make a decision that's final. Sometimes things just need to sit in their discomfort. And for me lately, that's really where my practice comes in, is like the ability to be comfortable in that discomfort is currently for me the epitome of patience. It's so hard, but I also know I can ride those waves and like surf those waves of discomfort, and they always lessen as long as I allow them in, like this too belongs.
So it's so crazy. In my research for this episode, one of the things that was routinely said in everything I read was building a tolerance for the feeling of being uncomfortable.
Funny.
Oh, and man, I mean, it hit me.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we're going on a little road trip this weekend, and we're all going to be in the car together, and it's like sometimes things can go awry, and the first thing that I want to do is fix it, make everybody happy, make sure you're happy, everybody's happy. But the truth is there's sometimes that something happened, no one needs to fix it, I need to sit on my hands and cover my mouth and be quiet and get okay with that uncomfortable feeling, because it really is. And it's hard. Like when I read that and when you use the example, it's so crazy. And that's probably why I avoid it, because no one wants to sit in that uncomfortable feeling. But if you do it, like most things, you build a tolerance to it, and you're able to kind of be like, okay, this is one of those situations. I'm going to keep my mouth closed. I'm going to let everybody absorb what just happened. And then we're all going to move on with our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. In neuroscience, there's a term called widening your window. And when you practice sitting with discomfort and getting increasingly comfortable with discomfort, you're widening your window, meaning you're more resilient, meaning you can hold more without it flipping you out every time. When you have a really narrow window, that's when we lose our temper, lose our patience, we're reactive. And so there's so much research behind mindfulness practice, certain styles of meditation too, and yoga, and how they help us widen our window. They literally help us hold more without it affecting our mood and our nervous system, and therefore everybody around us. Because, if you're the matriarch in the household, maybe you're the one holding a lot of it together. I know not in every house, we're all different, but like, I know for me, if I'm losing my, everybody else is having a bad time. And if I can keep it together and stay resilient and sponge-like and open and spacious and hold that, it affects everyone.
if mama ain't happy, ain't no one happy.
Right.
My grandma used to have that sign in the kitchen, and I used to think it was just like a whatever. I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Moms have to hold so much space to be grounded, and just being able to accept all the things that happen. Like my kids, I mean, I have two girls, they're exactly 3 years apart. They fight incessantly. And I'm like, for so long, I wanted to jump in. And now I know I need to hold space to be there for when the aftermath happens and how I react to that, and to let them learn how to deal with situations like this, and let them deal with their own relationship, because it's not mine. And that's a lot of my practice for accepting my current circumstances, which is, I think, another part of practicing patience, is understanding that right now it's like this. So when I was going through yoga teacher training, Lauren and my teacher Amber said, right now it's like this. And it's actually the next thing that I want tattooed on me because it gets me through so many things, because it can go for bad stuff. Like, okay, everything just hit the fan. Right now it's like this. 20 minutes, it'll probably be different. But it also can be for joyful things that you want to really sit in and absorb. Right now, it's like this. We know that other things are going to happen because life's a roller coaster. And so that has been from the time I started practicing mindfulness, which is when I met Lauren, to now, my biggest part of my practice is practicing right now. These are my current circumstances, and it won't be like this in a little bit.
It's such a powerful teaching, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah.
It's
I
such a
mean, it
powerful
really
teaching.
changed the way I look at things in general, because it's really easy to get caught up in your suffering. And especially when things are compounding and it's like, good gracious, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. And then woe is me. And suddenly you're in this spiral. And it's like, sometimes I have to say, wow, okay, this all happened. Right now it's like this. Like, in 2 weeks from now, so much of this will be off my plate. So many things will have changed, and my current circumstance will be completely different.
Hmm.
And that helps me get through that bridge of whatever's going on.
Yeah. I had a point where I had a piece of art up with that phrase, and then I had it on a sticky note. And then, with these practices, and, if you're using a phrase like that, putting physical reminders of it around you
Yeah.
is so important, because the more your eyeballs see it, even if you're not consciously thinking it, your eyeballs are taking that phrase in. And I think it now consciously, but also automatically all the time. If I'm really in it, I just say, right now it's like this. And it gives me some freedom and kind of shakes my mind's tendency to think it's going to be like this forever. It's going to
Mhm.
be this hard forever. And I can say, no, it's not. It's not going to be like this forever.
That's why I want it tattooed on me, is
Yeah.
because it's literally the one phrase that you can. I mean, I have breathe on my arm, which is the other one that I would say. And so I'm like, that and breathe are what get me through most situations. Right now it's like this, and keep breathing.
Yeah.
Right? That's all you can do. And those are probably two of my like core things for practicing patience. But one of the things that I read, and this is really interesting, is that being playful can actually increase your ability to have patience. And I'm like, huh, wow. You know what? When I am kind of silly and goofy with my kids and I'm playful, I feel a connection to them that maybe slows me down a little bit and allows me to drop into that moment, which brings me more patience because I'm being mindful of the moment. Is that right?
I think it is. I'm like thinking back to when I'm playful with my kids or with an animal or whatever, with my husband. And there is a sense of less tightness. Do you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
less tightness, there's less like hard focus, and there's more a sense of opening and relaxing into the moment. And in that place, your nervous system is also relaxing, expanding. All your systems are kind of turning down a notch. And in that place, your reactivity is lower.
Hmm. That's
So
so
that's
cool. When I
totally,
read that being playful, I was like, that's probably the number one from my research takeaway is what
hmm.
an easy thing. Like, I can be playful. I love that. And actually, sometimes I feel like I wish there was more fun. And I think that's why, because being playful helps my patience level and helps me connect and brings my nervous system down. So that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, I've never heard that or thought of that. And it's so true. I love
Right.
that so much. I mean, even just thinking about a situation where you're with somebody and the mood is tight and tense and serious and stern. And then a same situation when you're with somebody and you're laughing and joking and feeling connected, that person could do the same annoying thing in each situation. And it's you who would react completely differently based off the energy of that moment. So interesting.
It's so cool. I'm really going to try to remember that
Yeah, me
because,
too.
well, I mean, I go back to humor in general for a lot of things. Like I told you last time, I was like, there's that meme, like, if there's a situation, no matter the situation, I'm going to make a little jokey joke. And that's so me. I need to remember that playfulness just in life because that is going to facilitate that. That's another way to practice that patience and get it
Yeah.
inside of me. Um, One of the other things that I thought was interesting was practice being a good listener.
Hmm.
And what a skill that is. Because, like, I look at Ella, who is basically me when I was 8 years old. She doesn't listen at all, she, at all, and anything. And I think that that was me until like maybe even 30. I wasn't really listening. And the last 5 years for sure, I've taken a step back and I want to absorb what people are saying and connect with that person and be in the moment. And that active listening is probably why my mindfulness practice has done so well, is just the connection of listening to others, which is crazy. And that's an active, like, you have to practice that, you have to connect with another person and you have to listen to what they're saying. And sometimes, like, think about the workplace. It's like, I can't stand this person. Whatever's coming out of their mouth is stupid. And so you have to take a step back and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I'm going to hear what they have to say because it might land differently.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, kids can't really do it. That part of their brain isn't developed. It's just not in their skill set. But for adults, active listening gets so much easier the more you practice mindfulness because the part of the brain that would happen from gets denser and thicker, and that's always a good thing when the gray matter grows. So we actually talked about mindful listening in one of our first episodes. We should
Oh my gosh,
post it in
that's
the show
right.
notes. Yeah, I think it was in mindful relationships or maybe challenging times with
Yes,
challenging people. That was a really highly listened to
it
episode.
was. Everybody, it was at the beginning of the pandemic, and everyone was like having to switch to working from home.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yeah, it's so true. And it does take patience because mindful listening isn't just looking at somebody with your eyes and thinking of what you're going to say next. I mean, you could fake it, but on some level they'll know. Mindful listening is receiving what they're saying and then responding without pre-rehearsing or planning what you're going to say. So interesting.
yeah. And it can be hard.
Mhm.
I mean, like, I've done it on here. I've been like, oh my gosh, she said
Totally.
something, I got to jump in. And it's like, number one, that's disrespectful. And number two, like, does she think that I'm not hearing what she's saying? I'm a crazy person. I totally heard what you said, and I just need to say what I'm going to say or I'm going to forget it. And I know there's people like that. But the active listening part of the practice and that gets you to the patience is sit on it, listen, remember what you were going to say, digest it, take a breath, and then respond. And that hasn't always been my way. And my mindfulness practice has been really key in getting me to where I am now and like
Mhm.
really hearing what people are saying, even my kids, like not brushing off the little things that they say, because sometimes the little things are actually big things. But if you're not hearing them.
Yeah.
So, um, the last thing I'll say about patience is something we all in our house work on daily when I was thinking about patience. And that's when you're feeling rushed, consciously slowing down. And I tell my daughters this every morning. We have 5 minutes until we have to leave. Everybody take a breath and then do what you need to do. Because it's like, otherwise, it's like, we have 5 minutes and everybody's, and so I have to say in my head, okay, everybody's about to feel rushed. Don't put that rush on them. Let's
Mm.
consciously slow down. And I only do that to slow things down, obviously, and to practice patience, but also to teach them that's people are going to rush you along and encourage you and move you along. You can do that in a timely manner, but you're also allowed to take a second, ground yourself, and then move forward. And that's okay. I never felt that that was an option until I met you. Did you know that?
No.
I thought that if someone said something, I needed to respond immediately. If someone needed to do something, I needed to do it just like that. And now, like you simply taught me, take a breath. You're allowed. You're allowed a beat. You're allowed a thought, and you respond then. And it's a
I love
big,
that.
it's a big empowering thing in patience, just to say like, huh, okay, you know, but some of us feel like we need the answer. We need to say it right then, especially like in a work situation, it's like you feel like you need to give the right answer. But the truth is, you're human. You've got a lot on your plate and you need to digest it. Take a second. Okay, here's how I would respond. Instead of the and kind of thinking through it out loud, which is what I would do. But I need to like really think about it for 2 seconds so that I can respond how Misty would really respond.
It's like Misty's driving the bus instead of the outer world driving the bus. And
Yes.
that's a major flip-flop shift in a good direction, right?
I'm like a case study. Like when
Totally.
and now I'm far enough in my mindfulness practice that I can see how much
Yeah.
it has impacted, and I can see the things that have changed about myself and the unlearnings that I had to do, and the talking to myself and telling myself, take a breath. Like as soon as someone's saying something and I'm like, oh my gosh, what they're saying sounds so confusing and I have no idea how I'm going to respond, right? That's going on in my
Mhm.
brain. As soon as they're done, you know what? That is a great question. And I really don't know the answer to that, but give me some time and let me get back to you. Misty would have never said that 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
she would have just blasted through, then, well, there's the, and then like kind of given you what I knew about it. But the truth is like, I want to give you a really good answer. And in order to do that, I need to take a step back, and people respect that. But I never thought that, which is kind of crazy.
I think it all goes back to being comfortable in discomfort because
Yes.
the uncomfortable thing is to pause. The uncomfortable thing is silence. People cannot stand silence for the most part. The uncomfortable thing is saying, I don't know, but I'm going to consult with my colleagues. I'm going to do some research and I'll get back to you. The comfortable thing is the automatic, just filling the space with words, like word vomit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think, as far as leaving our listeners with a practice from this episode, you guys, there are millions of ways to practice getting comfortable in discomfort, whether it's what we just talked about, whether it's you're trying to quit drinking and 5 o'clock comes around and you feel that urge. Sit in that uncomfortable urge. I promise it will go away and it'll be 6 o'clock and you'll be so glad you didn't have that drink if this is the path that you're on. um, Sitting in the discomfort, like Misty's going on a road trip this weekend of something happening in the car, there will be that moment that you want to burst, and you're going to sit in that burstful energy and not spew it onto your family. You're going to sit there and you're going to ride that wave in your body, and it will eventually descend. And every time you do that, you're training and widening your window. It is one of the most powerful practices I know of living in this modern world, to sit with discomfort. And one last way that we fill time, I mentioned we have a hard time with silence, we have a hard time being alone. Notice how many times you grab your phone to open an app, Gmail, Instagram, Facebook, because you're uncomfortable with downtime. And maybe out of that recognition of discomfort of downtime, something new can fill it that's actually nourishing, that will actually serve you, because Facebook, Instagram, and Gmail actually don't serve you. They're just tools for connection, but I'm going to guess they're not elevating your experience as a human in this world today.
Man, those are such good practices and such good things to remember. And I mean, I find myself like, oh, wow, I have 5 minutes. Like, and then I pick up my phone. It's like
Same.
that 5 minutes. Just be, go sit down, do a meditation, step outside. Like, I have to remind myself of these. I'm really glad that we had this episode right before a road trip, because you're absolutely right. I will have that uncomfortableness that will happen. And I will not only build my resilience and growth, that helps my family in sitting in that and letting them learn how to be uncomfortable, especially from a young age. And
Yes.
mom not always fixing it, that this is the world. We have to all deal with it and process it and get through it, and then we move forward.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate this conversation. Patience, they say it's a virtue, and it's definitely lived up to that in my life. I have yet to achieve it, but I keep working. And if you're listening, I can promise you probably care about your mindfulness practice. And I hope that you took something away. And we appreciate you guys, and we will see you next week. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for listening to Mindful Talk. We don't take it lightly that you spent your time listening to our podcast, and we are forever grateful. If you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and a review. Welcome to a more mindful way of living and working.